So thank you for the invitation to come and speak with you tonight. What a good showing. It's a great effort to come out tonight, because you've probably all reached the end of The Extraordinary Attorney Wu, is that right? And you've run out of episodes, so there's nothing else to come to, but it's just great to see you tonight. It's a good show, isn't it? And it's terrific. I'm just going to talk to you for about 20 minutes and give you a little bit of background to this program and to the effort that it's making in Sunbury. I live in Sunbury as well, and just so people can hear, yep, glad to use that as well. So I hail from Sunbury. I had been an advocate on this program and on the board for about 9 years, a chairperson for a while. And then we took off for Sydney to look after some parents, and in 2003. And when I came back, I'd been involved in the national program to raise money for citizen advocacy programs, which I'm still a part of, so we're still doing that. In fact, we completed a national conference, and quite a number of you attended that back in February. But I'm here just to talk to you about the link between this idea of social role valorization and what that's all about. What is it trying to resolve? What is the problem that social role valorization, or what we call SRV, is responding to? What's going on? You know, there are about 3 major questions that we all need to answer in our life and that everyone is confronted with. One is, am I good? The second one, am I competent? And the third one is, am I worthy of love? Now, quite often, as we grow up, we get some nice answers to that, and we tend to do well in life when we get strong, clear answers to those 3 questions, but not everybody does. And in fact, lots of kids, sometimes it's curious that the bullying they might receive aims at those 3 questions. You're no good, you're an idiot, no one loves you, you know, and they tend to go for that. Isn't that interesting? And that's often because the bully doesn't have clear answers to those questions either. And so for people with disabilities, this becomes a problem, because quite often when they're seen by others, we only see the disability. And we're told that that's all there is about this person, is this diagnosis they've received. And we get to enlarge that, and everything about this person is kind of pushed into the background. And so we sometimes end up, of course, people end up in services that specialise with people with that diagnosis. So we start grouping people in accordance with that. So what people end up with is what we call a managed life, is one way of looking at it. And quite often surrounded by a human service. And we've come to think that human services are the solution for people. We pay a lot of taxes to human services and the NDIS to kind of provide people some kind of decent life. And what we find is that very basic needs are met. So we get a sense that, you know, you get food, you get shelter, you get clothing, you get some trips occasionally. There might be a bus, there might be a little bit of health care. Big problems going to hospital quite often for people though. And so big problems emerge in that. And it's interesting because when people enter a service, there are very strong ideas about what they're supposed to be like. Some of the ideas include that they're eternal children. So a sense that they're children forever, that they never really grow up. And we find that some people get spoken of with childish language, even dressed as children and possessions of children, activities of children, things like this, you know. Another one is that people might be objects of ridicule. It's a very old role. And so that they're a source of jokes and derision, these sorts of things. Other types are that people might be a burden, you know, it's made life hard and therefore burden and difficult to support.
People get teased too.
Yes, so that's what happens here. So you get teased as a kind of that ridicule. And even a related role here is that you're a trivium. There's nothing particularly important about you. You're just a joke. We don't have to take your needs seriously. So these kind of things can occur. And then there are some other roles that are even darker, like that people might be menaces and therefore that they need surveillance and control, these kind of things. The curious thing about all of this, that every review that has ever been done of the service system has just found out that what is occurring here has huge problems associated with it. So rather than being a straightforward kind of arrangement here of staff coming in and meeting the needs of people, that it's often filled with abuse and neglect and exploitation. And we've got a Royal Commission just ending up now. It's been going for months and months, and it's just one bad story after another. It's like a standardised system when what people need is something that's individualised. A bit like eating at McDonald's. Every night you'll get the same type of hamburger over and over again. And of course that's what systems are designed to deliver. They're not designed to bend to the needs of individual people. And so rather than this being a home for people quite often in a residential context, it's actually a context where it's more of a facility, a work environment for staff who will come and go, sometimes rapidly in great numbers. And so rather than a home, people have a house. You might say we have crowds of people who are still homeless. To have a home, you need a homemaker. And there are no homemakers in these facilities because they're a service. But sometimes they come along with a very nice sounding name. Now against that kind of context, we have over here the shared space. And most of us here tonight live in the shared space. We come together as a community. We have things in common. And one of the things that draws us together, that allows us to participate together, is that we have valued roles. See, these are devalued roles. These are negative roles. These aren't roles that people aspire to. I can't wait till I grow up to be the object of ridicule and the menace. We don't wish for those things. These things are imposed on people. But if people are given these roles long enough, it's what they become.
I think that the people that put in these roles need to be trained for disability so they know what they're doing.
That's right, that's right. And one of the things they need to be trained in is how to help people to have a valued role, just like everybody else. So this is worker, neighbour, gym member, all sorts of things we get to be within our community. And some of this grows out of the interests that we have as well. You know, artist, athlete, all manner of things that people are able to become when they're permitted to in the community. Because when we hold valued roles, we get to be seen as valuable and worthwhile knowing, worthwhile interacting with. And yet back here, we see those sorts of things are often not possible because people are kept in groups together and have very limited access to this other than to observe other people involved in this kind of thing. Of course, one of the big questions that many parents have is what will happen to my son and daughter when I die? And some people put their hopes that this managed life that people have will take care of them. But as we've seen again and again, this hope in the system, because systems can control a person like parents do, but systems don't love people like parents do. And that's one of the big differences, because when you have someone who loves you, you deliver the three questions, but you also want what's best for the person rather than just the standardised package. So we're back over here, and we realise that some of the things that come from valued roles, a real big one is that you get to contribute, you get to belong, you get to grow and develop.
So you get a sense of purpose.
You get a sense of purpose, perfect. In other words, when you get the roles, you get the life. And we call these things the good things of life. And there's something we can predict here, that the more roles you have and the more valued those roles, the more chance you have of getting these things. Now, the reverse is also true. If you don't get very many valued roles, or the only roles you hold are devalued roles, you probably won't get given access to the good things of life. And the reason for that is the good things of life is given to you voluntarily. It's not something you can claim as a right so much. I demand to be loved and I want it now. Like, doesn't kind of work real well. It's one of those things that people give to you freely and voluntarily because they see you as worthwhile and want to extend that. So the good things of life isn't something you can coerce out of other people. You can't twist their arm. You know, will you love them on weekends if we pay you time and a half? It kind of doesn't work that way. It's something you have to give and want to give voluntarily. So the big question here, how do you get from here to here? If this is where the good things of life reside, where participation with other members of the community occurs through valued roles with each other, because you haven't got a role, you've got no means of participating. You're just sitting in a white bus looking at everybody else getting the good life. But to be part of that, then I need a role, because the role then translates into something. It provides the setting and context for us to interact with each other. Otherwise, I'm just a stranger. And this is true for everyone. Not just people with disabilities even, but for lots of disaffected kids, people who are chronically ill, people from other cultures, you know, people who are marginalised. This is a concept that can be used for all of those people, but we especially use it for people who have a disability. And because they've often been the ones who've been marginalised, even to the point of getting rid of them entirely. So the question is, how do you get from here to here? And there's just one thing. The bridge between the devalued world and the valued world is a freely given relationship. That's the bridge. Someone who's committed to this person who isn't paid. Someone who is in their corner and no one else's, who doesn't have a conflict of interest because they work for an agency or they sleep with the boss or something like that. They're free of any conflict that might limit their capacity to act in someone else's life, because they've got some relationship here that means that they owe them something. Well, if that doesn't exist, that means I can just do things that are right to support this person, and I'm not limited in how far I might need to go. If I need to go to the minister and to government, I can do that. If I need to go to the media, if I needed to do that. And quite often, advocates don't ever get to do that very much, but the people they're dealing with back here to try and get things working right for people, they know that this person is really like, they could go and do anything to blow the lid on us. And the fear of that is what makes them change. The advocate rarely has to go that far, but they could, and they know that too. And that's the power of advocacy, is in its independence, where the advocate can act. And that's what brings about the good things of life. Now, there's one other benefit, that this is the strongest safeguard. A safeguard is something that exists to prevent something bad happening, in this case. The strongest safeguard against the person being harmed. It's the strongest way of protecting the very life of a person. So what you're going to see coming out of the Royal Commission, of course, is more regulations, more money, more training for this and that, and you'll probably see citizen advocacy defunded because they don't know what they're doing. That is, the funders don't realise the potency of citizen advocacy, that this person in the life of a person is the strongest safeguard. There's nothing stronger to protect that person. Otherwise, the person is completely naked to whatever happens here, and they're rendered voiceless. They have no power in that situation whatsoever. But when you have a valued person on your side, in your corner, willing to do what it takes to make that happen, now you've got some potency to protect you. And we all need that occasionally. But there are three reasons why this group of people need it even more. The first is, often the person can't work out the problems themselves. Secondly, they're often being devalued and likely to remain devalued for the rest of their lives. So that means people don't take much notice of them. And thirdly, they have almost no social network, no one else to speak on their behalf. Now, they're the people that the program finds and matches them to a citizen advocate.